Okoye stood heaving over the body of the 9-year-old. He had never seen blood so red. In the nearby distance, he could hear the drumming and the excited chatter from the village square. He dropped the cutlass and took off the Ekpo mask in sheer horror. Now, without the stale smell of dried grass and without the peculiar hues of the mask's leaves, the deed seemed yet more sickening. The clean air blown from the nearby stream seemed to clear his head of the dulling effects of the gin and marijuana soup from earlier in the day. The facts came to him with amazing clarity. He had just killed a boy, an innocent, a simple mistake, but he knew the penalty. He, the earthen vessel of Allah, would be unmasked publicly and disgraced in the marketplace. Unless... Desperate, Okoye danced into the village square. He performed with all the wild energy he could muster. The crowds gathered to watch the vessel of the earth. He leapt up in the air and it seemed like 2 market days had passed before he landed. Even he was impressed with the act. Now, in the most guttural voice he could raise, he announced that Allah had drunk the blood of the enemy. Silence fell, and Okoye loved the sound of his voice even more. He bellowed the name of the little boy. Nwafo of the compound of Ikenna has breathed his last. A mournful, almost animal wail rose from the agitated murmurs in the square, but Okoye did not break stride. The god of the ground said that the boy, Nwafo, was the vengeful spirit of Akankita, the wizard, returned to torment the land again. Okoye ended with a word of consolation for Adaku, the boy's grief-struck mother, and announced to the entire village that the land was now consecrated and the people would prosper. With this, Okoye fainted. He had not planned it so, but the weight of his guilt, mixed with the enormous audacity of his face-saving deception, knocked the breath clean from him. The last thing he recalled as he slipped into unconsciousness amidst the applause and ululation of the people was a very sobering realization. He had enjoyed killing the boy very much. The villagers had a saying that time ripens the young gazelle just as it betrays the poor looks of the baby monkey. As time passed, Adaku, mother of Nwafo, the little boy dispatched at Okoye's machete, was vilified. The mother of a wizard could only be one thing. Her lot was not helped by the fact that she was a widow. Rumor had it that she ate her husband. But as her notoriety grew, so did Okoye's fame. He was highly revered as the man chosen by the spirits to redeem the land from evil. Young maidens loved him, and little boys admired him. Okoye was almost a god, and he carried his reputation well. Thus, time passed. It was 3 full seasons before Okoye carried the Ekpo mask again. Not even the oldest people could remember a New Yam festival awaited with so much excitement. Okoye was the main attraction. His Ekpo mask had been redecorated and elevated to one of the 5 most venerated in the land. He had also left hints that his performance this season would be unlike any seen before. Okoye appeared from inside a thick cloud of red smoke and the frenzy took over. His mad gyrations took him like a spirit through the village center and onto the farmlands. Now he bounded up the hill to the village shrine and lifted up his arms, beseeching unseen forces in the groves beyond the rocks. Ekwensu's throat was a phenomenon. It looked like the calabash that the gods drank their palm wine from. A watery crater of jagged rocks, it was the most sacred shrine of the village. No one knew the source of the water in the gorge, but it never dried out. They said that if you sacrificed at Ekwensu's throat and your offering floated before it sank to the bottom of the still muddy pond, then you were just and vindicated, and your prayer would be answered. But if your sacrifice sank straight away, you were impure and untrue to the earth. Your prayer would be denied, but much more. It was said that such a one would be plagued by the gods for attempting to fool them. For this reason, few people dared to sacrifice at Ekwensu's throat. His prayers done now, Okoye led the way on. He seemed to run on air round the market, through the stream and back on the path to the village square. He moved forcefully yet gracefully like the soft wind that brings a stormy September rain. The whole village followed as closely but cautiously as they could, not that they could keep up with the earthen vessel of Allah half the time. As the wild procession poured down the path behind Okoye, something began to happen. It would not have been thought possible, but the excitement grew even more. Everybody recognized it. Okoye was heading for the spot where he had slain Nwafo years before. The horde pressed in as they reached the edge of Old Man Ibe's farm. The excitement in the air was electric. It seemed to fuel Okoye's performance and send him into a trance-like dance. He raised his machete and the crowd shrank back. He held the machete waving high in the air as though an invisible force kept him from striking. Now Okoye seemed to struggle with an unsightly beast 10 times his size. As the whole village watched, he waned under the mighty arm of the unseen beast. They cheered him on, but he was forced down on one knee. As if on cue, the girls broke into sonorous song, praising the arm of the vessel of Allah and extolling the prowess of Okoye. This did the trick. Muscles rippling and sweat dripping, Okoye fought back off his knee. The village roared. The monster was down and Okoye stood to his full height. With a solemn sense of duty now, Okoye brought the machete down in one clean blow on the very spot Nwafo died. Fever. The crowd ran to the masquerade, but his handlers whipped them back. Okoye, exhausted, turned and cut a path through the throng, staggering towards the village square. But as they passed the stream and came again to the hill of the shrine, silence fell so quickly it hurt the ears. Okoye was the last to see her. His mad performance paled in comparison with the mere sight of her. There, standing on the edge of Ekwensu's throat, was Adaku. She looked calmly at the village, and they stared aghast as she tittered on the rock's mouth. "He was all I had left," she said, not even crying. "Allah bears me witness. I am not a witch, and my son was innocent." Her voice trailed, but she glared at them all through bloodshot eyes. No one dared think what Adaku wanted to do. She was standing naked as the day she was born at the rim of the 24-foot drop into the watery gorge of Ekwensu's throat. Now, Adaku's voice was a shrill flute of rage. "You people have killed my son for no cause, and you have wronged me and the spirits of my clan and my dead husbands." The people murmured their trepidation, and even Okoye shifted. "I now call the gods to judge between me and you." Adaku clasped her sagged breasts. "Allah, hear me. With these breasts, I suckled my child, and these people snatched his life though he did no wrong and could not speak for himself. I have no money to buy a clean animal to give you, so I bring all I have left." Her last words were uttered from a deep, dark place in her belly. "Give me justice." With this, Adaku flung herself in. Okoye and the village crowded at Ekwensu's throat and watched as Adaku's body appeared to fall like a feather and float ever so briefly before falling beneath the surface. Her calm eyes stared their accusation at all of them before she disappeared to her muddy grave. In the chaos that followed, Okoye was gone. No one could tell why. Perhaps she caught the picture of all their own mothers with her shriveled breasts that flapped like banana leaves. Or maybe it was her sincere prayer to the gods. Whatever it was, the people believed Adaku. Finally, the village was a riot. Adaku's sacrifice had been accepted. Justice was swift. On market day, Okoye was unmasked in the village square. The villagers were bursting with righteous fury. As Okoye knelt before the chief priest, confessing his sin, the people mourned Nwafo and hailed the bravery and virtue of his mother, Adaku. Finally, the rituals complete, a bag of devil beans was poured over Okoye. As the sun set on the square and the people went home, the last witnesses said Okoye had gone mad. He was never seen again. Some people say the angry youth had dragged him away to the forest and killed him in the middle of the night. It was also said that a spirit had entered the man, taken him up to Ekwensu's throat and cast him in to be Adaku's slave in the afterlife. No one seemed to know for sure, but the masquerades were never ever again treated like gods. Even they knew better.